Brugerdi affirms that any Zionist aggression on Syria would ignite a comprehensive war in the region. The Information Minister Omran al-Zarbi stresses from Moscow that Syria is the target of an aggressive war. The Pope of the Vatican calls for releasing the 2 bishops kidnapped by the terrorist groups in Aleppo suburbs.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Irado Krikorian with the news in English. Iran has warned that any Zionist aggression on Syria will cause a comprehensive war to break out in the region. In a press conference on his talks in Damascus, head of the National Security and Foreign Policy at the Iranian Shura Council, Ala-Din Brugerdi, said that the Zionist entity is well aware of this and would not open the front of a new war, the result of which remain unknown, particularly in the wake of its successive defeats by the resistance. Brugerdi stressed the need to solve the crisis in Syria through political negotiations between the representatives of the government and the opposition. He pointed out that in some regions the government and the opposition reached understandings that led the armed men to abandon their weapons. The foreign ministers of Greece, Albania and Estonia have affirmed their support for a political solution to the crisis in Syria. In statements following NATO foreign ministers' meeting yesterday, the Estonian foreign minister said the alliance has been clear about its intention not to intervene in Syria. He called on the world community to continue to exert efforts so that dialogue may be initiated among all parties and a solution is found to end the violence through political means. On his part, the Greek foreign minister said the situation in Syria had deteriorated recently, particularly after the kidnapping of 2 Christian religious men in Aleppo suburbs, which requires from the world community to work jointly to solve the crisis in Syria. The Albanian foreign minister said there is an agreement by all NATO member countries to go ahead in finding a political solution, underlining the importance of dialogue with Russia in this respect. It is to be noted that NATO Secretary General Andres Fogh Rasmussen has stressed yesterday that the alliance has no plans to interfere in Syria. Lebanese Foreign Minister Adnan Mansour stressed following his meeting with his Spanish counterpart, José Manuel Garcia, that both Spain and Lebanon agree on the necessity of finding a political solution to the crisis in Syria and the importance of isolating Takfiri militant groups. Both ministers expressed concern about the infiltration of Salafi elements into the divided opposition. For his part, Spanish Foreign Minister said that the political system in Syria enjoys wide political support by the people, as well as a strong and efficient army. He added that as far as Spain is concerned, there is a need for dialogue between the government and the opposition to reach a solution to the crisis in such a way as to include a wide range of political affiliations and trends. Information Minister Omran al-Zarbi has affirmed that the media war against Syria is based on a set of elements that seek to prevent Syria from using the technologies needed to enable it convey the true information message about the events taking place in the country. In a press conference in Moscow, al-Zarbi said, the Arab League has not succeeded in performing its objectives and so far has taken no economic, social or political decision that has been actually implemented. It is a mere decoration and a fake foundation, he asserted. Minister Zarbi affirmed that Syria is the target of a real aggressive war and that the media dimension in this war is essential and basic. He added that the armed terrorist groups served as a military arm to transfer Syria from one side to the other and that several states are directly involved in supporting those groups. The information minister pointed out that he had discussed with the Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov the developments of the situation in Syria, particularly the efforts exerted by the Syrian government and the ministerial committee in charge of implementing the political program to solve the crisis in Syria and the results the committee has so far reached. The Foreign and Expatriates Ministry has addressed two identical messages to the chairman of the UN Security Council and the UN Secretary General on the kidnapping by an armed terrorist group last Monday of Bishop Paul Yazigi of Aleppo and al-Iskandarun for the Greek Orthodox and Bishop Ibrahim Yohanna of Aleppo for the Syriac Orthodox. The ministry said that an armed group led by Chechen terrorists from Jabhat al-Nusra had intercepted the car of the two bishops west of Aleppo while they were on their way back from a humanitarian mission. The terrorists assassinated the deacon who was driving the car and kidnapped the two bishops to an unidentified place. In both messages, the ministry affirmed that this terrorist crime fell within the framework of the extremist terrorist activity practiced by the armed terrorist groups who are linked to Jabhat al-Nusra and its foreign mercenaries and externally supported by some regional states. The ministry concluded both messages saying that the Syrian Arab Republic confirmed once again that a political settlement based on national dialogue among the Syrians under a Syrian leadership required putting an end to the violence of those al-Qaeda-linked armed terrorist groups through exercising pressure on the states that provided them with all forms of support in order to stop flaring of violence and terrorism, which they did through presenting material support and political and media coverage to those groups. Pope Francis I of the Vatican has called for the release of Bishop Paul Yazigi of Aleppo and al-Iskandarun for the Greek Orthodox and Bishop Yohanna Ibrahim of Aleppo for the Syriac Orthodox who had been kidnapped in Aleppo suburbs last Monday.
Che faticano a trovare la strada della concordia affinché reprendano con coraggio
In occupied Jerusalem, Patriarch Hanna Atallah, the Archbishop of Roman Orthodox Church, called for exerting all efforts to release the two bishops Yazigi and Ibrahim. Patriarch Hanna said that the two bishops are well known for their humanitarian work in service of bringing religions together and bridging the gap between the rich and the poor. He added that the two bishops always defended the right of Palestinian people for self-determination. The Mideastern Synod has denounced the kidnapping of bishops Yazigi and Ibrahim. The Synod condemned in a statement all acts of violence and murder which violate human laws and conventions committed by the armed terrorist groups in Syria, pointing out that all Christians in the Middle East sympathize with the suffering of Syrian people regardless of their religious background. The Synod renewed its call to stop violence in Syria and find a political solution to the crisis. 7 citizens were killed and dozens others were wounded following the explosion of 2 mortar shells launched by the terrorists at Al-Madaris Street, Al-Janayan neighborhood in Jaramana at Damascus countryside. A police source said the one shell fell in front of the municipality building at the center of the city and the other near schools complex. At least 25 people were wounded, including a child. The 2 mortars caused severe damages to cars and buildings in the 2 areas. Terrorists today assassinated Director of Qualification and Training Department at the Ministry of Electricity, Engineer Muhammad Abdul Wahab al-Hassan in Damascus. Engineer al-Hassan was seriously injured in a blast of an explosive device the terrorists had earlier attached to his car near the First Technical Commercial and Banking Institute in Al-Baramke area. A health source at Al-Muwasat Hospital said that Engineer al-Hassan passed away due to his severe injury. Units of our armed forces intercepted an armed terrorist group which was attacking military points in Harasta city in Damascus countryside, killing and wounding dozens of terrorists. Other terrorists burned the bodies of their dead gunmen to hide their identity. In Homs city, the army units carried out several operations against terrorist hideouts and gatherings and eliminated scores of them in the areas of Al-Qarabis and Al-Khalidiyya neighborhoods. A military source said that the army killed scores of terrorists after targeting their hideouts in the towns of Al-Haydariyya, Al-Hamidiyya, Al-Ash, Al-Dab'a, Al-Buwayda, Al-Sharqiyya, الدمينة الغربية in القصير countryside. The source added that an army unit eliminated scores of terrorists near Al-Ghanto crossroads. Among them were Ahmed Karmuddik, Jihad Nasser and Mohammed al-Daqqa. Army units targeted the terrorist gathering in Jisr Shughur countryside in Idlib and killed scores of them, in addition to destroying their criminal equipment. In Aleppo suburbs, our armed forces carried out several operations targeting the hideouts and gatherings of Jabhat al-Nusra in al-Ziyara and their Jamal villages. They resulted in destroying the hideouts and killing and wounding dozens of terrorists. Army units restored security and stability to Al-Waha village weeks ago and ensured life's basic requirements for its inhabitants, who have gradually started to return to their homes. This has also been the case in an Arab neighborhood and an Arab camp in Aleppo. Both areas had suffered a lot from the crimes of the mercenary terrorists. However, the army re-established security and stability in both regions and provided food supplies to citizens who affirmed their adherence to their homeland, Syria, voicing determination not to be allowed to be deported again by the Zionist agents. Two Russian planes carrying 23 tons of humanitarian assistance to the Syrian people have arrived in Latakia. Russia had recently sent several planes of humanitarian aid, some of which headed for Jordan and Lebanon to meet the needs of displaced Syrians. In occupied Palestine, Israeli forces of occupation stormed several areas in the West Bank and set up military checkpoints at the entrances of a number of towns. Israeli forces also tortured Palestinian citizens and prevented them from going to work or schools. The Israeli raids resulted in the arrest of a number of Palestinians. Meanwhile, bulldozers of the Israeli occupation started to demolish a number of Palestinian facilities and houses in Al-Arub refugee camp north of Hebron. Finally, Iranian Defense Minister Ahmed Wahidi said that his country has made great progress in the field of developing ballistic missiles and advanced cruise rockets. Wahidi asserted that these missiles enjoy accuracy and great speed and they hit their targets directly. He also pointed out Iran's progress in designing and manufacturing fighter jets and drones, as experts in Iran's defense ministry have succeeded in developing two new highly distinguished fighter jets. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Khalid Saqabani after a short break.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The Director General of the General Establishment of the Syrian Free Zones, Mohammad Khattout, said that the new draft investment law, which has been referred to the Economic Committee, will be finalized very soon in order to be submitted to the Cabinet to be approved. Khatut also added that the new law meets the ambitions of all the investors, especially with regard to granting licenses. In addition, it also encourages the industrial activities. The new law will also include the facilitations to initiate the specialized economic, technological, and the free zones in order to compete with the neighboring ones. The law includes subjecting the goods manufactured in the Syrian free zones to the inspection. The Director General of the Domesticated Birds Establishment asserted that about 60% of the breeders resumed their work in several governorates. He added that this will ensure the ability to cope with the increasing demand and provide the needs in the local markets. The director also noted that the chicken prices will decline. The American spot crude is up to the highest price in more than a week, as the industry reports showed that the stockpiles declined in the U.S., the world's biggest oil consumer. Futures increased as much as 0.8%. The U.S. stocks are up, sending the Standard & Poor's index to a third-day high. The European stocks are also up for the fourth day after the biggest rally for a region's benchmark. The Japanese shares also gained, with the Nikkei index rising and boosting the outlook for exporters. Gold gained after the biggest fall in the week yesterday, advancing for the sixth time in 7 days, increasing the physical purchasing caused as the assets to go down. The euro declined against the dollar and the yen after a report showed that the German business confidence declined more than the economics preceded during April. With this, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of our news bulletin for today. Thank you for joining us.